Alright, so last night you watched a video about the angles formed by lines that are intersected by a transversal. Well, tonight we're going to pretty much do the same thing again, but we're only going to talk about the angles that are formed by parallel lines and transversals. So angles formed by parallel lines and transversals. So our lines are going to be parallel. So we'll draw a couple of parallel lines. So here is a line, and I'm going to come up with another one that's exactly the same. So they're both going to be parallel to each other. And then I'm going to intersect those lines with a transversal, like that. So here's my lines. You should draw this too. You need parallel lines. One good way to do parallel lines is to use a ruler and just draw down both sides of it, and you'll have nice parallel lines. Or you could use your graph paper and use two lines that have the same slope, whatever works for you. And then we're going to label our angles here. So we have angle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, you should be able to, from yesterday, to identify the corresponding angles, the alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, same side interior angles, and same side exterior angles. Now, when we identify them, if we know that these two lines are parallel, so I'm going to say that I know that they're parallel, there's more to it than just identifying. So I'm going to write down, and you're going to write down something called the corresponding angles postulate. All right, and what it says, corresponding angles postulate, you're going to write it down. You're going to write down a lot more of these also tonight, is if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal. Cut just means intersected by. Are cut by a transversal. Then corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, and we're going to take a quick look at what that means. So two parallel lines, here they are, parallel line, are cut by a transversal. Here's our transversal. Then the corresponding angle. So I'm going to highlight an angle here. I'm going to highlight angle 1. Corresponding angles are congruent only when two parallel lines are cut by a transversal. So that means angle 1 and angle 5 are the same, right? So hopefully you see that angle 1 and angle 5 are the same. Now, what we're going to do is list out all of the corresponding angles and which ones they're and how they're congruent. So we're going to start with angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 6. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 7. And angle 2, I'm sorry, we already did 2. Angle 4 is congruent to angle 8. Now, along with the corresponding angles postulate, which this is now something that you can use in a proof, right? The proofs are the hard part, right? So you need to really know what the corresponding angles postulate says, not just have written it down and say, okay, 1 and 5 are the same, I'm great. I'm good. You're not good. You need to know the corresponding angles postulate. You need to be able to say it, write it, identify it, and use it. Now, what we're going to do, or more, what you're going to do, is you also need to write down the alternate interior angles theorem, the alternate exterior angles theorem, the same side interior angles theorem, and this same side exterior angles theorem. So this is all I'm going to write because I already know them, and I'm not going to have a test on them in a few days. Okay, so you're going to take out your book or go to the online textbook, and I want you to write down all 4 of these, and I want you to write the real theorem, the if-then conditional statement that goes with the theorem, and you're going to identify all of the angles that are congruent based on these theorems. And I'll give you a little hint here. These two talk about congruent angles. These two talk about supplementary angles. Okay, so don't think that everything's congruent. We're going to go back up here and look at my picture for a minute. You see that angle 1 and angle 3 are a linear pair, aren't they? So you know that means they add up to 180. Well, angle 3 and angle 7 are corresponding angles, aren't they, right here? Angle 3 and angle 7. So they're congruent. So that means that if 1 and 3 add up to 180 degrees, 1 and 7 will also add up to 180 degrees. So this is going to get really complicated really fast. So I want you to put all of these in your notes, identify all the angles. I'm going to be checking it tomorrow to see if you did it. And when you get there, I want to see if anybody can tell me a really easy way to remember and use all of these theorems and this postulate and know really fast which angles are congruent and which angles are supplementary. So put all of this, finish this up in your notes, and we'll talk about it tomorrow.